Kris. Welcome to Disabled and Proud. How are you today?
I am absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this chat. I think I'm going to learn so much. We're going to have great conversation. Oh, I'm super excited to hear the raw, uncut version of who Kris is. I'm so looking forward to this.
Fantastic.
So, my first question that I ask absolutely every single person that comes on this podcast, and it's actually one that I think is really important to start with, is how do you refer to your disability?
That's a great question. So I am disabled and proud. I'm proudly autistic. Proudly have a syndrome. It's a form of Down syndrome called Arslaugh syndrome. So it is Down syndrome. I do have an extra chromosome, but it is slightly different. But it still comes under Down syndrome.
See, what I love about that is that, again, it's that whole idea that disability is an umbrella term. And as you've just said, like, it's a part of Down syndrome, but it's not exactly, it's like an extension, right? And this is what the whole idea of disability comes down to, is that actually it's a massive umbrella term for a whole multitude of different things. And and isn't that like the best thing ever? Because you can be like, you can just be what you want under that umbrella. Like, there's no set guidance and no set rules.
For myself, I love being disabled, and it's only taken probably the last 2 years I could honestly say that. I've been through a real journey of life, right, to come to this point of where loving myself and loving who I am, loving my identity. It's been a process, and I think saying like my disability doesn't define me and makes me who I am. I mean, it's evident, right? You've got to take you look at me and you can see that I have a syndrome, and I think with that, I think it's so important to kind of have that self-love within yourself, and kind of really really mean it. I think it's something like really, really mean it, because there's people say, "Oh yeah, I love who I am," and yet they're hiding under their covers and they're crying because of their difference. I think like yourself, I think we're in such a time right now where our difference is so significant, and I think it's so apparent that why we have these conversations is not just necessarily for the disabled community, but on a wider audience for the non-disabled community to understand a little bit more about us. And when they see a genuine love who we are as people, they will welcome us in. I think we're in such a amazing time right now as a disabled community, that where we've always felt really marginalized. But I think the question is, I think to the non-disabled people, is they're frightened and they're scared. And we as the disabled community have a massive responsibility to not point fingers all the time and say, you've got this wrong, so we're going to penalize you. When actual fact, we should actually turn around and be like, no, we don't like to be called differently abled. We don't really like these type of words. We're quite happy with the word disability that you gave us. Just because you feel guilty, you feel that you have to change it up. You don't need to change it up. We're proud and we're disabled. So let's just keep that going,
And it's total reclamation of the word disabled, isn't it? Because I hate the term differently abled. I think there's so much negativity that surrounds it. But you're right in what you say, that actually it's a fear of getting it wrong. And actually, again, your point is perfectly made, is that actually as disabled people, while sometimes it is a massive effort to educate, and not everybody wants to be a part of that, and not everybody should as well, because some people just aren't naturally born educators, and that's completely fine. As disabled people, there is a level of education that sometimes has to be given to those who aren't disabled, to understand how we are and how we view ourselves, but also how we can help others who aren't in our community accept and welcome and also embrace the community for what it is, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, can I give you an example?
Oh my God, yeah, of course you can. I love this.
Yeah. So, 2 years ago, I met a young, wonderful boy by the name of Jacob. Jacob has a very rare syndrome called Kabuki syndrome. He's also deaf, and he's also just been diagnosed with autism. He is a twin of his twin sister, Hannah, who is not disabled. And when I started Open Book in 2021, Teresa, his mum, kind of found the platform, and she was watching it, and really intrigued, obviously really wanting to see older disabled people, really for her son, right, to kind of find some of the identity. Well, Jacob really warmed to me in such a strong way, and me and his mother started talking, and from that we've gained a massive and great relationship. But Jacob, bless him, he rings me every single evening after school. He rings me after school. He believes I'm a celebrity. He believes when he's watching my podcast, he thinks I'm famous. He thinks I'm this celebrity, and all the time he looks at me in awe and waiting for, looks at me in awe. And the wonderful thing about it is, literally sort of like a few months ago, it was late in the evening, his mum sent me a WhatsApp message, and she was like, Kris, I gotta say something to you that he said. And he was like, Mummy, he looks like me. And I was like, wow, I was taken back by that. And the wonderful part of this, as much as it's incredible and encouraging for us to hear this, is actually Jacob is Black, right? I want to point that out right now. It had nothing to do with race. It has the identity of actually seeing something of what inspires him and saying that I want to go out there and do this. And what's incredible, when we was at Disability Expo, that Jacob was there front and center taking photos of me. I ended up bringing him onto the stage for a moment, and then everyone was like clapping, but you could see the genuine love and how inspired he was. And when I see the younger generation of today, that they're embracing their disability, they're unashamed, they're unapologetic, and saying, this is who I am. And when they can do that, and when I see these young, vibrant, disabled people that are doing phenomenally well right now, I mean, when you see these TikTok accounts and their Instagram accounts and celebrating who they are, as a 44-year-old man, having that type of confidence at that age, the world is our oyster. And that, for me, is encouraging, that though we may not necessarily see the change that we want in our life, we know the next generation is going to be going up there, smashing down the door, taking off the ceiling. And for me, firsthand, I'm inspired, and I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, I love everything that you just said. And I think what's so important is that representation is there, because we all are aware of this fact that representation is lacking. It's slowly getting better, don't get me wrong, but it is massively lacking, and it has been for, ever since media really began, let's be quite honest.
Absolutely.
Disabled people didn't exist on TV until, I think it was something crazy like 15 years ago, which is absolutely ludicrous. But actually, this ties in really, really nicely, because you were just talking about the youth of today. And I was wondering, what was childhood like for you?
You said to be open and honest, right?
Yeah. Be as open and as honest as you want to be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would love to turn around and say it was Skittles and rainbows, but the sad reality, it wasn't. Life was extremely cruel to me. I was nonverbal till I was 8 years old. And, you know, a lot of people are surprised by that now because you can't shut me up. But yeah, I was non-verbal until I was 8. But the sad reality is that I was extremely bullied as a child. You know, like, I won't go too much into it. I'm not here to upset your audience. But, you know, I was, you know, walking home from school one day, you know, a group of boys would think it would be funny to strip me down naked, throw me in stinging nettles and urinate on me. And, you know, and these were things that would constantly be apparent. You know, I'm very open of the fact of issues and stuff that I've gone on. It's up on my social media. I was sadly sexually abused when I was young, and that was something that you know, being in traumatic, you know, trauma counselling from the age of 14 years old, even down to date. But, you know, I think for myself, you know, it's what I've learned from those traumas and learning from those pains. Again, as I said, the last 2 years I've been on this real self-love journey. You know, the tears, you know, coming home from school and just saying to my mum, why am I different? Why can I not fit in? Well, now I understand, because I'm called to stand out. And I think that comes down to that whole personal journey and that love and who we are as individuals. And we can, you know, recognize that actually I'm not the problem. I'm not the one with the issue. It's actually those that are feared and they're scared. I mean, I think you were absolutely right in what you said about it's only been the last 15 years since they put someone with a disability within the media. But let's not forget, it's only been 90 years since I would have been allowed to even walk the street by myself, right? I mean, the truth be told, that I had to be hidden, you know, or locked away. Someone who has Down syndrome, that's what it was. And, you know, we can, as you said, we can see how far we have come. But let's be honest, we're the most marginalized group in society, and disability doesn't discriminate. It affects every race, religion, sex, and age. But as you clearly know, these type of conversations just simply don't exist. And what you're doing and what I'm doing is making a difference, and you are making this huge impact. And, you know, this is why I stand with you. I think what we need to do in the disabled community is we need to unite in one accord to bring forth the change. We got to stop competing with each other and collectively work together to make that difference. Because what I'm seeing, the sad truth about it is everyone's worried that if I make it and I bring someone else in, then there's not going to be room for me. It's rubbish. Guys, whoever's listening to this, stop that thinking and let's collaborate. You know, I say this and I'll end it. So I told you I can talk, right?
No, I love this, because everything you're saying really resonates with me, which means it's going to resonate with other people as well. Absolutely. But also, I really like to foster conversation that invokes critical thinking. And so even if someone else doesn't necessarily agree with what you're saying, they can understand the reasoning behind what you said. And I think exactly what you've literally just said about collaboration is absolutely imperative, because you're right, there is a competitive element to the disabled community, because everybody wants to be the loudest voice, everyone wants to be the most impactful voice. You know, you're almost comparing and contrasting stories all the time, and who's got the most tragic story, but also who's got the most empowering story. And it's a constant battle, because at one point someone sees themselves, or the media outside of the disabled community sees them as quote unquote more disabled, so therefore they get more airtime, and that's amazing. And actually you're right, that's not what it's about. It's about all of us actually coming together and being like, yo, like, we actually have something to say, but we all need to say it together, because you know, two voices that stand alone aren't that loud, but two voices together make a much bigger impact.
Absolutely. And I mean, just on that note, I think I look at it in the the early 90s and the Million Man March, right? You know, that was before social media. Can you believe that? The Million Man March was before social media. So what impact we could do as the disabled community if we unified together and actually brought one voice to actually bring forth that change. And I think that's something that I'm working towards, especially with the corporate sector and the job that I do. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. but I'm very excited about the work that we're doing, especially within the corporate sector. So, but we'll get into that in a minute. But you're absolutely right. Unite in one accord, and let's go out there and be that change.
Yeah. I also really want to thank you for sharing your story of your childhood, because I know that that's not an easy story to tell. So I really appreciate you opening up to me and speaking about it, because I think you're right, you learn from what you go through, regardless of whether you want to or not. But actually, I really want to thank you for that, because it's not easy topic to talk about, and I really appreciate you sharing that on this platform.
Well, absolutely. Like I said, my past does not dictate my present, and what I do in my present will build me a better future. I think the wonderful thing about why I can open up and I can share these stories, one is because I've got healing, right? Yeah. I'm healed from these things. I understand that I don't need to take wrong responsibility. It's not a woe me situation. This situation doesn't define who I am. In actual fact, I know through the processes that I've gone through, and the changes and the challenges that I've seen, is making me the person that I am today. And I think with that type of strength and that type of ability has actually redefined me as a person. And I don't hold resentment anymore. I have love and compassion, right, towards not just the own disabled community, but I also have love and compassion for even the non-disabled community, right? Because the truth be told, and I'll share a little bit about this before I get into work, about my job. Now, obviously, I work within the corporate space. So I'm the first Down syndrome person to work in payments globally in the world, right? Yeah. And I was petrified going into that environment, absolutely petrified. Now, can you imagine going into that space where they're talking millions every day and thinking a Down syndrome person walking around this beautiful office space, who's going to want to work along with me? But do you know something? There are people that work within that organization where I work that have children with disabilities.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the faces of my now colleagues who I work with day to day, who has an 8-year-old who has Down syndrome, absolutely petrified by what is my child going to be like?
Yeah.
Greater than me.
Yeah.
And I can only say that because of the love I have for myself now.
Yeah. And actually that really ties into what you were saying earlier, is that actually that representation matters, because you're showing up in a space that traditionally, and I'm talking years, but it's still incredibly true, actually. Traditionally, disabled people are not necessarily welcome in the corporate world.
No, not at all. Well, actually, I can tell you now, within banking, it's only 6% of people registered. This is globally in the world right now. 6% of people only 6% of people within banking industry have registered that they're disabled. 6%. 6%.
That is alarming, isn't it?
It is.
That's absolutely alarming, because when you think about the general population of the world, or general population of the world, you know what I mean? The percentage of disability in the global population is bigger than 6%. So it's bigger than 6% in banking. It's just whether or not you disclose that information or not.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, that has it's made me sad and angry, but also it's made me realize that we got to keep going, because we have to. Absolutely. The reclamation of disability and disabled is just it's imperative. That there is no other way forward.
I mean, and I think it's being someone who's obviously neurodiverse. What a lot of organizations will do is they'll turn around and say, well, actually, we're really, really big on neurodiversity. And my question is that's fantastic, but what about disability? And they're thrown, because it's like, don't get me wrong, it's horrible being dyslexic and having dyspraxia and maybe having ADHD, or like myself being autistic. But again, we have amazing technology that can actually be, really helpful and to utilize for our jobs. But that doesn't change the basis of what is it like being a disabled person within the corporate sector? And you know, we'll get into that in a little bit, because the reason why I'm smiling is I've got a really good answer on what I'm going to try.
Well, this honestly transitions genuinely seamlessly. Like, I'm almost impressed with myself, but I actually can't take credit for it. It's just the way the conversation has naturally flowed. But I like to think about how, or how not, it really depends on the person, but how has the work that you do now in your career been affected by your disability?
That's a fantastic question. You know, as I said, I started my job March of last year, really not knowing what I was going to expect. You know, in 2020, I lost my job to disability discrimination. Probably one of the most challenging times of my life. In 2016, I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. 6 months later, I ended up having a stroke. Going back into light duties, I then was challenged by a fraudulent redundancy. What we challenged, you know, I think the fact of the matter is the previous company that I worked for, I think they took one look at me and thinking, well, this disabled person doesn't know anyone. We can kind of par him off, make him a fraudulent redundancy. But they don't realize that I have friends that are not disabled, right? Like, I actually have some very high profile people in my life, one of which a young lady called Annette Evans, who was the HR manager of a company where I work right now. As you know, we went to church, and I said to her, I said, Annette, I've got this letter. You know, I've just been made redundant. Could you please take a look at it? She took one look at it and she started laughing. I was like scared that I've lost my cleaning job, right? And she's looking at this and she's laughing, and I'm like, this isn't funny. And she was like, I know, right? I laugh at it now, but she looked at this and she was like, this is not real, Kris. It's actually fake. And I wouldn't know, my mother wouldn't have known. And within 24 hours, they reinstated me in my job. Within 24 hours, we got called into the office to then, you know, sat down, and when Annette come with me, said, oh yes, we've had a little bit of food for thought, and we're going to offer you your job back. And Annette was like, well, no, because he never lost his job in the first place, and then challenged them. They thought that she was a solicitor, and she's like, no, I actually work within one of the biggest fintech companies in Europe. And I'm the HR manager. And she says, so you're not? She's like, no, but I actually study HR law, and they've got the HR with my manager present. And to cut a long story short, I come out there better off. Let's just put it that way. But in 2020, I lost my job to disability discrimination. But the truth be told, as I said, I was on a self-love journey, right? In that trying time, battling 2 terminal illnesses, going through that process, and then coming out of this to now work within this amazing space where I work now. So I work for an organization called Thread. Thread is a fintech company where I have the pleasure to go to this beautiful office every day, right? I'll send you a picture later on. You'll be like, what? Where you work, right? It's beautiful. I walk into this hotel-like building every day and go there, work with some amazing colleagues. But as you said, it wasn't, I did not know what I was going to expect when I first walked into this company. My manager at the time, Steph, who is one of the most greatest joys of my life, she was the lady that interviewed me. It weren't even an interview really, because my friend Annette, who obviously was in there with me, she basically said, look, I've got a guy who could do this job, and I really would love for you to give him an opportunity. She said, that would be absolutely, okay, no problem. Oh, by the way, he has Down syndrome and he's autistic. What? But to cut a long story short, I got the job, and you know, literally within 3 months, I led Disability Awareness Month. You know, and then from there, they have just supported me ever since. Anything that I've needed, the reasonable adjustments have just been there. It's a beautiful, beautiful company to work for. And I'm so inspired every time I walk into the office with the love and support that I get. As I said, there's colleagues there that have children and family members with disabilities. And, you know, they have come around me, they've supported me, they've loved me, they've encouraged me, they've welcomed me in with open arms, you know. And yeah, like I say, it's the greatest joy walking into work every day and just seeing my colleagues' faces. Calling them my colleagues still feels weird to me. But yeah,
I love that so much, because it comes back to that representation and actually that, like, not giving in to what, you know, other people perceive about disability. Because quite often, and this is actually just a known fact, is that disabled people get told about themselves all of the time.
Absolutely.
People love to have a comment about you, what you can and can't do, whether you're a health and safety hazard. But actually, there's so much strength and power in being like, do you know what? Shut up. I know exactly what I'm worth. I know exactly what I can do. And actually, I'm going to show you how I do it. And you're just going to sit and you're just going to watch and you're just going to learn.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, you know, it's what the opportunities was arise for me, you know, being in this organization that I work for. So, you know, last year, sorry, what about last year, beginning of this year, shall I say, I, you know, to get my mind open, I had the opportunity to speak at a conference here in London called Pay 360, probably one of the biggest payment events in the UK. And actually, I shared my story as a Down syndrome autistic person working within the corporate sector. I stayed with the HR manager at the time, Annette, who was with me, as well as Joanne, who was the CEO of that time as well. And we was on stage and we basically shared our story. Obviously, it's quite groundbreaking because there's no one in the industry like me. So it kind of shocked the waves a little bit, thinking, hold on a minute, this organization Thread has employed somebody with not just a disability, but someone who is special needs. And I think there's a massive difference here. I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate. We can talk about disability, all, you know, until the cows come home. But I have special needs, right? So being someone in the special needs community, not just in the disabled community, there's a whole different world, because nobody wants to talk about special needs. No one wants to talk about special needs because they're like, oh my days, where can we go here? They look to the left, they look to the right, they'll look at their watch, they won't know what to do. And I think the companies had that bold move to turn around and say, actually, let's work with someone who has special needs as well as someone with a disability. And we're going to nurture him, we're going to love him. We're going to, you know, I have my own. I like to turn around and tell the CEO, you're not the only one with a PA. Because I also have a PA, right? I also have a personal assistant, someone we actually got an organization, as I'm sure you're aware, called Access to Work. And I have a support worker who comes with me every single day at my work, and she sits with me and we do my work. My work never lacks. I'm always on time at my presentations. And I think one of the most groundbreaking things, not just speaking at Pay 360, but was actually in July of this year. I'm still smiling because it's unbelievable. They flew me out to Amsterdam, where I spoke at Money 2020 in front of thousands of people. I had every major fintech banking industry watching me for 20 minutes while I shared my story about being a disabled person within the corporate space. And I think it runs up with the previous things that you were speaking about just a moment ago, that actually we are being that voice of change, getting those opportunities to stand in front of those people that, you know, essentially are one of the most important people in the world. And they sat down and listened to me for 20 minutes. And having people from MasterCard, Visa, come up to me and say, Kris, tell us about access to work. We don't know what it is. That there means that we're bringing a difference. It's a process. Love the journey. I think that's something that's so, so important. Love the journey that you're on. You know, I've asked this question, and I've never been. It's never been on the other side.
Yeah.
So you know, I feel that don't let your past dictate your present, and what you do in your present will build you a better future. And it starts by this. Write down 5 obtainable goals every single day that you can stick to. Just 5. For me, it was literally getting up in the morning, making my bed. That simple. 2, going downstairs and preparing your breakfast. Just preparing your breakfast. 3, read and meditate just for a little while. 4, go out for a walk. It's important to be kind to yourself. You know, listen to a podcast. Listen to something that just drowns out that noise. Something a little bit positive in your ears. And 5, remember who you are. Don't let society dictate what you can and what you can't do. Those 5 goals that I started in 2020, and my Google Calendar is completely full till next year now. But it started with 5 obtainable goals that I could do every single morning. I say to anyone with Down syndrome, you can go out there and rule the world. You can be exactly who you want to be. You know, don't let society say to you that you can't do this and you can't do that. What? Are you telling me someone with Down syndrome can work with impairments, work within a corporate space? You're having me on. No, it can't happen. Won't happen. Well, it has. Well, so hold on a minute. So, yeah, but you have Down syndrome, but surely you're never going to leave your mother and father's side. I'm in my own home that I've bought, right? But you'll never get a good education. I've got a doctor in. So whose report and who are you going to believe? Yes, I was brought up in a special needs school. Yes, it was challenging. Yes, it took me a lot longer to get what I've got right now. I'm 44 years old and I'm only just started living my life.
Yeah.
But who said that there has to be a time zone on it?
Yeah. And again, that comes back to that representation.
Absolutely.
It
always comes back.
So flawless. Today it's just circling back so well. I'm so proud of myself. But actually, it always circles back to that representation. And actually, if you're showing up in those spaces and if you're there, that only ever helps the younger generation. Absolutely. And that only ever helps those who are below you. And I don't mean below you as in like class, whatever. I mean like those who are not necessarily like as far on their journey as you are. And I'm a big believer in that we stand on the shoulder of giants. So we stand on those who came before us. And so I think what's so exciting about even this conversation is that actually there are going to be people who are going to outdo both you and I from the disabled community.
Absolutely.
But I can't wait to see them do it, because actually they'll be stood on our shoulders because we've carved a path for them to be able to do it. And isn't that like amazing? Essentially, that's what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it? To leave some form of legacy, be a bit happy, and actually realize that we did some good in the world. Social media in particular can be an echo chamber. And that is amazing, but also incredibly detrimental as well, because the message is just getting bounced around the same echo chamber and it doesn't actually get out. It's almost like it's in a rubber ball and it's not bouncing off the rubber ball. It's just inside. Absolutely. And actually we need to transfer that to other places, because whilst it's good and well, and it's amazing that there are so many talented disabled people out there, if you're still stuck in this echo chamber, nobody's going to know. how do we get outside of this? How do we have these conversations in places that actually need to have these conversations much more so than in our own community? And also does tie back to exactly what you're saying about the disabled community having one voice. Because as we know, there are many different voices in the disabled community. There are many different opinions. Some of them are vastly different from the others, and no one is right or wrong. There is no right or wrong in this, but actually sometimes the disabled community doesn't get it right, and that's also okay. But it's not something that we're willing to kind of accept, because we're seen as educators, or, you know, we put ourselves in the fire alarm to be educators. So when we do slip up, it almost seems like it's 10 times worse than if, like, average Joe blocks. Exactly.
Cancel culture. And you know what, I find that funny, because you can't cancel that something is owned. And I
love that.
Yeah, so like people could turn around to me. I mean, it's funny, right? A friend of mine recently, he's, you may know him actually. I'm not going to mention his name because, he probably would surely I like this, but he said something the other day. It was like, you know what? Just wish disabled people would just get off their high horse and just.
I know exactly who that was.
Yeah, but he's disabled. He's disabled, right? And I was like, what? And I was like, whoa. But he's right. Yeah. And I was like, wow. I won't, like I said, I'll get him on the podcast because I let him explain it a little bit better than me. But the reality is that we need these type of forward-thinking people. We need certain individuals as well that will challenge the narrative. So I've had to re-educate myself. I've had to sit there and listen and really get it. And I'm like, wow, Kris, you've got to rethink your things. You've got more learning to do. We never stop learning. And I think this is the thing, right? Sometimes we can, I said this, my mum said to me, Kris, the pen is mightier than the sword. And I was like, no, Mum, it's not. And she was like, what? I said, because in order to rewrite the history, the sword needs to be drawn in order to bring forth change. And the sword I'm referring to is our mouths. The very thing of what you're doing right now is your mouth is a tool, it's a weapon to bring forth that change. And that, for me, is the wonderful thing, what you and I are doing right now in this conversation, because we're bringing forth that change.
Yeah. I think everything that you just said is exactly spot on. And it's not that we don't love the disabled community. We love the disabled community. They are some of our favorite people, and it's our safe space, and it's our humans, and we love them so much. But it's because we want to see the change. We want everybody to be on board, and we want everybody to push. And that's because that's just the type of people we are. We're probably like people who push people, right? Like I know I am. Like I can rub people up the wrong way because I'm like, just do better. Come on, let's go. And it is that, and it's being able to be like, actually, sometimes that's probably not what everybody needs, but equally, like, this is the journey and this is where we're all going. So let's, and as you said earlier, let's all be one voice and let's all go together. Because if we don't go together, what's more impressive, right? A stampede of ants or 2 ants?
It's back down to what we said about this whole conversation is about. It's been about representation, right? And I think that's what I hope we can call the title of this conversation.
Representation with Kris and Brooke.
Yeah, but you know what? I am so impressed by you. I've seen your hard work. I've seen the dedication. I've seen you push. And I'm sure you've got stories and like, Kris, I was ready to give up 6 months ago, a year ago. But you know what? There's that little voice inside me that keeps telling me, push on, push through. And I mean, by the look of your face, I'm right. Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, because you know what? I've been there, right? Yeah. I've been there. I said earlier on before we started, the year that I've had, doesn't need to be discussed right now. But the very thing about it is that little voice inside me says, you know what, Kris?
Still there.
It's still there. You've got to keep going. You know, there's a reason why we're doing this, you know. And I just want to say firsthand, I'm so proud of you, Brooke.
Oh, thank you. That actually means a lot. I
So
get
proud of you.
emotional when people tell me things like this because I don't always know how to handle it. I'm very upfront and saying that sometimes I don't know how to accept a compliment because I just do what I do and I don't know how to not.
Well, you know,
thank you.
Yeah, I want to give you your flowers because you truly deserve them.
Oh, thank you so much. I only have one final question for you, and I already know the answer, and I know you also know the answer as well. But I just want to take this moment to say thank you so much for being on the pod. Thank you so much for reaching out. And like, I've absolutely loved this conversation, and it's come full circle so many times that actually it's been such a beautiful dance between the two of us with our opinions and how it's flowed. I've genuinely loved it. So thank you. But my final question for you is, Kris, are you disabled and proud?
I am disabled and proud.
Oh, love it. It's been so good. Oh, like I said, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on. I've loved this conversation, and I think everything that you're doing is incredible, and it's all about representation, and it's all about, you know, showing up in those spaces where, like we said, traditionally disabled people are not there, and that's incredible for so many people, for so many younger generations. You're that first person, so thank you so much for giving up your time to be here.
Listen, it's been an absolute joy. I want to say thank you so much for having me. I want to say thank you to everyone that's going to listen to this, that will comment, that will reply, that will reshare. It's important that you do. These conversations matter. It's all well and good that you can listen to these amazing, you know, conversations with what Brooke is doing, but you commenting, you sharing means a massive difference. We need to get those algorithms right so we can then go bring forth to a wider audience, to the voices that you know, to the ears, shall I say, that need to hear this. And that's to the non-disabled person, guys. They're the voices that we need to stop preaching to the choir.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm already excited for part 2.
Let's do it. I'm on it.